Welcome to another episode of Sanford Says. This is Lisa Holder, Communications and Marketing Manager for the City of Sanford. Today we have two really incredible guests with us. His name is Alex Mendez and Greg Mendez. They are sculpture artists. They are from Indiana and here because we have an incredible public art program that is funded by the City of Sanford, the Sculpture on Loan program. We've got 10 sculptures out in our downtown area, created, designed, and constructed by these two gentlemen, these two artists. So welcome, Alex and Greg.
Hi, thanks for having us.
How are you doing?
Real good, thanks.
How was your trip down to Florida?
Long. Very, very long.
Yes, because these gentlemen actually drive the sculptures down here, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I understand you got into a little bit of like weather, nasty weather and stuff like that.
About the first 10 hours of our drive was just nothing but rain.
Yeah.
We're bringing down both our trucks and what's your trailers, 18 feet?
Yeah, 18-foot trailer.
We made a judgment call around Knoxville, Tennessee, with all those thunderstorms that were coming through Georgia, to kind of go around the east side of the mountains and avoid all the inclement weather. And
right.
It turned out to be a very scenic route, so we've taken that route before, and
yeah,
we knew what to expect on the drive.
Right, because particularly you have done this before, a couple of times before, and this particular grouping of sculptures that we have at the City of Sanford were chosen by our public art commissioners. They discussed this with the artists and picked these particular 10 pieces. We have, I think it was like 7 by you, Alex.
6 by me and 4 by Greg.
Okay. So do you want to share a little bit more about what this Sculpture on Loan program is? And I know you other cities have had this same exhibit already. From what I understand, South Dakota, North Dakota. So they'll feel nice and comfortable in our Florida weather.
Yeah. They've had some pretty cold years. They've been in South Dakota. They've been in Indiana. So it'll be nice for them to be in the Sunshine State.
Yeah.
To have the sun shining on them more than just 3 months out of the year.
Right. So let's talk about some of your. They're up right now. They're beautiful. Matter of fact, of course, art is beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but they are strategically placed in our downtown area. Do you want to explain, please, what that Sculpture on Loan program is and how long it'll be here in Sanford? Great.
Well, yeah, I think what you guys are doing, this is the very beginning of your sculpture on loan program, and a lot of times what they're referred to throughout in different communities are sculpture walks, and that's one of the best things about this public art display, this type of public art display, is it gets people outside and kind of creates a pathway for them to walk through designated areas where this sculpture walk is put in place. And it's kind of one of those things. Each sculpture is a point of interest. So they're taking this walk specifically to see the sculptures, but at the same time they're getting to see what your community has to offer. And what happens with this particular exhibit was last year on display in Valparaiso, Indiana, but this number changes each year and it gets higher. Almost 100% of my body of work is created with the specific intent for being displayed in public art programs. So they're juried art what they are is juried art exhibits with the intention of being displayed outdoors for about a year, 1 to 2 years at a time. And what happens is the sculpture artist submits their work to whatever program they want their artwork to be displayed in. If it's selected, you have to transport that sculpture to that community and then pick it up the next year. And a lot of times you're awarded a travel stipend or a year-long lease. And what that covers is the transportation of the sculpture, because most of the time what that requires is truck and trailer to get it where it's going, which could be a 1-day drive. It can be a 4-day drive to deliver the piece. And then you have to go back and pick it up at the end of the lease.
Right.
So the pieces that were here specifically, while they were on display as a whole last year in Valparaiso, Indiana, they've also been separated almost one at a time in different sculpture walk programs throughout the country. Like Alex said, a lot of them in South Dakota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Ohio, Michigan, really regional
Right.
for us. For every sculptor whose specialty this is, a lot of times they tend to display their artwork, within 2 or 3 states of
I see.
their studio, just because of transportation strategics.
Right. Now, the backstory of this, how you got connected with the city of Sanford, I understand you had art in DeLand, right? Sculptures in DeLand.
That's correct.
And Reggie Santilli, who's a public art commissioner from DeLand, was the connection to Sanford?
Yes.
Yeah.
She had reached out to Greg and I believe in August, about the idea of purchasing some pieces. And that's really what got the ball rolling for this program.
Right. And so it's an opportunity for the city to have on display several pieces, 10 in particular, for this sculpture walk. And the community gets to enjoy that. The city of Sanford, pays for the leasing of them,
Yes.
which is not as much as it would be to purchase 10 sculptures.
Yes.
So we get the benefit of that. The community gets the benefit of that. You do as artists. And so at the end of this 2-year period, which is what the city of Sanford has agreed with the two of you to keep them here, is a purchase, correct?
Yes.
If we want to purchase one of them, and at the end of the 2 years, at the end of the 24 months, and that'll be discussion to have with the public art commissioners, and we can have the public probably chime in and vote on which one they maybe like the best, right? And that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think there's a good model set for these these sculpture walk programs, and a lot of times what's been successful is what's called a People's Choice Award, and that's allowing the community to get involved with the sculpture walk. So as they've got to walk by their piece the sculptures daily, or drive by them daily, I think the communities where these sculptures are tend to develop attachments to certain pieces. And so at the end of these displays, once the favorite piece has been voted on, a lot of times that piece is then purchased and then kept in the city permanently. And that's one of the coolest things about these public art displays, because it's right there in the name what it is, public art. It's for the community. So what's really cool about that is the community getting to pick their favorite piece, and the possibility of that piece staying here.
Right. And they feel a part of it too, like it's a piece of their own, right? And so can you explain to us what your sculptures are really made out of, and are they both the same materials for the two of you, Alex?
We both use mild steel, but some of my sculptures will have stainless steel elements, just because I think it's really pretty once it's cleaned up, because stainless steel can be very shiny, and it will kind of reflect what it's surrounded by. So the pieces that have stainless steel, where you guys have placed them, are perfect because they're in green areas, so it will reflect the green grass or how bright the sun or the sky is. So you'll kind of get these different colors from that stainless steel as well.
And yours are a little, would I use the term contemporary or abstract versus what Greg's style is? How would you explain that?
It's really interesting because we are completely different ends of the spectrum with abstract versus realism.
Realism, right?
You've got total ends of the spectrum, which makes sense because of how we are as brothers. It's two completely different traits.
People. And we should mention that it's not a coincidence that their last name is Mendez. They are related. They are brothers. So, so that we probably should say that too. But, and so yours is realism more so?
Well, the art world, there's so many different terms used to describe artwork.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing for me to admit, because I have a formal education in art, that there's a good chance I can identify my own pieces wrong. I think, technically, both of our pieces are technically abstract. So you have this big, broad description
Yeah.
of artwork is. So I think both of our works could be called abstract. And then from there, you start branching down into more detailed.
Yeah.
And I think a good way to describe mine would probably be closer to representational.
Uh-huh.
'Cause when I think of realism, I think of bronze statues.
Yeah.
Very picturesque. And
Right.
but again, art being subjective, when you look at my works, it probably could also be described as realism, because they're mostly figurative.
Right.
So you immediately recognize there's a figure, there's a face, there's a hand,
Yes.
there's fingers.
Yes.
And I want to point out, as his brother, I did that because I know that will start a small rant from Greg, just to give us a better description of both of our works. And
See that? And he is the older brother, right?
yes,
Well, and the funny thing is if a podcast, if you could see our faces,
Right.
he knew before he even said that, he knew that's where that conversation would be going, because it's we share a studio, and most of the time we're across from each other, but we can see each other's facial expressions as we're working, even though we
Yeah.
respirators on our mask.
Yeah.
Something's going on. We can tell
Yeah.
what the other one's thinking, and that's what that has worked out to our benefit doing public art specifically, because there's a lot more to it than just artwork and having the knowledge of composition and what works with colors and things of that sort. You also have to be a tradesman. You also being an artist, you need to generate some income. You also have to be a business person. And something that we figured out a long time ago, you also have to be kind of almost like a long haul trucker, because
Right.
you're moving large steel objects. When you're moving them several pieces at a time, you can easily have a couple tons on the trailer
Right.
when it's all added up. So you need to know, you have to figure out how to load them, how to properly strap them down,
Yeah.
how to get them safely from point A to point B.
Right.
There's quite a bit to it, and it's over the years we've figured out between the two of us how to who has the strengths,
Yeah.
where's the in this specific area, who has the strength in
Yeah.
that, and that's where a lot of times we will intentionally put that responsibility on the other.
Right. Now let me ask you this. So what made you want to focus your works in the public art realm? Because essentially you wouldn't have to be a trucker. You wouldn't have to learn to do all this if you had a local gallery in where are you're from, where is it? Decatur, Indiana. I mean, so what is it about public art? Do you want to like maybe each say something? Because it's, I'm sure, really rewarding, right?
well, so I've got a good spiel about this, and that's what there's an age gap between us of 10 years, and Greg has been doing this, I think, 10 years longer than I have as well. And I was going into my senior year for classical guitar performance at college. And I was losing my mind. It was just, I needed a break. So he took me out to Sioux Falls, South Dakota for an installation, for a sculpture walk. And so I was just there kind of decomposing and just really relaxing. And I've actually found a sculpture that was just larger than life. It was 16 feet tall. The welds were 3 inches wide. And I met the artist, and the artist was a mountain of a man as well. He was 7'2", all of 500 pounds. And it was just amazing to me that he was able to move his welder and his welding wire in the way that he did. So on the drive back, I was just kind of asked Greg, is like, will you teach me how to weld? And so my running joke now is, I was already a musician, so I was already poor. So why not just be more poor and be an artist as well? So I kind of hit the ground running, and that's just by being around Greg and the other public artists. That's where I decided, like, well, public art seems to be really enjoyable because it's also accessible to everybody. So when I talk about public art, for me, I always talk about how I'm a poster child for it, because I had no idea I could even create art and make a living from it. But then seeing public art in this setting, like, oh, you can. So
Yeah.
when I talk with cities and I talk with everybody, I always champion public art and public walks like this, because what you've done is you've shown that 11-year-old child or that 66-year-old tradesman, like, hey, you can do this, you have the skill to do this, but you can learn the skill to do this without needing extra training or having to do all this. You can do it. And that's why, that's kind of where public art has, it's kind of made its home for me, is because it's so accessible and it lets you show people what you can do.
Yeah. I mean, what about you?
Interestingly enough, the more that I think about this question and other ones like it, the answer seems to differ year to year, because I remember more. I able to think about it a little bit more. For me specifically, and for both of us really, our parents did a fantastic job raising us. They encouraged every interest we ever had, and provided us with as many opportunities as they were able to. So growing up, I always enjoyed reading comics and the artwork that was in comics, and I thought that's where my interest in art started. And from there, my parents encouraged me to draw and really fostered my interest in art. But interestingly enough, I think ultimately for public art specifically, my interest came about in such a strange way. I used to be an amateur boxer.
Oh, really?
What seemed like another lifetime. And what would happen with boxing, Indiana was not a large, hot spot for boxing. So we would have to travel for matches and tournaments quite often. And in between weigh-ins and the actual bout, or tournaments where we would be there for a few days at a time, the best thing to do would be to go to an art gallery or art museum. And my dad and my mom both that's what we would go and do while we were traveling for a sport. And some of the best cities that we went to were the cities that had public art, because it's free for you to view at all times. Then that's what it's there for.
Right.
I think in a way that's really what brought my interest. I think specifically we were one of the things that stands out. We were up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan for a tournament up in Marquette, and there was a park that just had public art all over the place, and it was just the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And at the time when I was an amateur boxer, that was in my late teens and getting ready to start to thinking about college. And I already knew, even though I was an athlete at the time, that I wanted to go to school and study fine art. So I think being able to see public art really helped solidify that desire to study art in a formal setting.
Right. And so what do you say about just art in general? There are some folks that just don't care for it in the public realm and think that the city should spend money on, infrastructure instead of displaying art. I mean, I know they always say art is in the eye of the beholder. We know that art increases economic development. It helps with all of that. Marketing, tourism, small businesses. We've had, when you guys were installing art out here the other day, we had a few business owners come out and really be thankful that you were installing the art around where they were and everything. So, I mean, I know you're both artists, but what do you say about what art does for a community? What is that? What would you say?
You can really it depends on where the community is at when you're adding the public art, but when a community is trying to kind of be on the upswing, you can start seeing those improvements pretty rapidly, because you'll start seeing improvements of the sidewalks and the roads, because you're seeing that the influx of foot traffic, and then the city themselves will start applying for grants that they normally wouldn't have, because they didn't have the ability to say, hey, we've got this much extra foot traffic, we've got interest here. And so that's where we have seen some improvements with where we're from, the city of Decatur.
Yeah.
We're going on our, I believe, 14th year. And when it started, the downtown was, it was on its last leg. It was pretty dilapidated. And now, there's new sidewalks. All the roads are new. There's a facade grant. All the business owners are getting to update their buildings, because You've got to see,
Not to mention because there's there's businesses downtown. A lot of the buildings were vacant.
Yeah.
and so you're seeing this kind of this metamorphosis, and it is related to that foot traffic of artwork. And you do get the naysayers saying like, oh, you can fix the potholes, and oh, you could have done this, and that's true. But this extra foot traffic and extra income will help that as well. It's kind of interesting because the thing with that though is you're always going to get somebody who's just going to find a reason to complain about it. But for that one voice, you've got 100 others saying thank you.
Right.
And that's not only does it add that economic value, but again, and I'll go back to that idea that you've got that 11-year-old looking at that going, I can do that. You've got that 6-year-old going, I've got a bunch of scrap metal. I know how to weld. So you've got this nice balance of there's economic and just the community itself is being inspired by it.
Right.
And I think that's what, building off of that, being inspired. Public art, by definition, that is the purpose of it, to inspire the public, to connect the public, to involve the public, to soothe, to provoke. And I mean, but by provoke meaning
make people think, right?
Yeah, exactly. Not in a negative.
Right. Yeah.
As far as and
inspire.
Yeah, to inspire. So this public art display could be inspiring, like Alex said, future generations of artists.
Yeah.
At the same time, when people are seeing this artwork, it's because it is subjective.
Right.
They will develop their own interpretation of it. And something I really like about the display that you guys put in place here in Sanford is that there's the title of the art of the sculpture with our names on it.
Right.
We really like that. But what's not there is an artist's description of the artwork. And while sometimes that can be cool to know what the artist was thinking, to me, it's self-defeating in public art, because right off the bat, when I tell someone about what this sculpture means, it's putting an idea in there
right
about what it is, and really kind of depriving them of developing their own interpretation of the piece. And that's what's really cool to me, is seeing because I know what my intention was with each piece. I know what they make me think of. I know how they make me feel.
Right.
But what's of interest to me is what someone else's interpretation of those sculptures are.
Yeah.
That's where that, they inspire, soothe, comfort, that sort of
right
different feelings that they can trigger.
Right.
That is so cool to hear, or to hear about sometimes when it's able to do that.
Yeah. And so for those listening, there's 10 sculptures. They're all titled, and their artist names are on the plaques. They're throughout downtown. We will be posting them on our social media. We are creating a marketing brochure, public relations brochure for this sculpture walk, in particular for the art festival that's happening in Sanford at the end of the month, the last weekend in April, the St. John's River Festival of the Arts, where we're expecting thousands of people to come into town. And it'll be really great for this works to be there. And then when they pack up and leave, they'll still be here, the sculptures. So for not only our visitors, but our residents and business owners to enjoy. I got a question for you about local artists versus, like, y'all are from, I said y'all, Nico. I don't know, like we are from Sanford. Local versus hiring artists from out of the city. What is your thoughts on that? Because sometimes we'll get some comments about, well, what about having a local artists out here? Do you have any thoughts about that? Versus, hiring local artists versus guys like you that are from a different state. Does it matter? What do you think? What is your?
That's kind of an interesting question, because there's a couple different aspects when you think about it. Because when you have local artists, the kind of the problem with local artists is they're local. They've already kind of saturated the market with their work. Everybody has seen their work, and they probably love their work. So that's great. That's perfect, because now you have an artist to kind of talk about. And that what's interesting is when they go to a different city, they're not the local artist. And so that's kind of at least my view on this is, well, I'm a local artist in Decatur. Everybody's seen my work. So when they get excited about somebody else's sculpture, it's not going to hurt my feelings. It'll hurt my feelings, of course, because I'm a sensitive person, but it's not going to hurt my feelings in the idea of they're excited to see something new.
Right. Okay.
I think that's the perfect example of what Alex just used. We have a public art program where we're from, the Decatur Sculpture Walk, Decatur Sculpture Tour.
Okay.
I can't be back on the committee. I can't believe I said the name wrong. But exactly what you said was, we lived there. We've been displaying in that sculpture tour for 14 years. Our community, while they appreciate our work, they've seen it.
They're tired of seeing our work.
Okay.
And they appreciate it. They do. I hope they look forward to seeing our work each year. But we have artists come. We put up about 20 pieces each year, and they going into our 14th year. We have artists come from as far as Colorado, West Virginia, Louisiana, and because they have not seen those artists work before, it's new, it's exciting, and I think the one of the coolest thing about it is because they are from different regions of the country, their subject matter is different, their technique is different, everything is different, and it's I noticed that as soon as I walked into the building here, you have some artwork hanging on the wall, and when we see wildlife paintings, things like that in Indiana, we don't get to see crocodiles and sandhill cranes, and so a lot of times it's not that the artwork that I see at home hanging on the wall is not good artwork. It's that I've seen hundreds of owls. I've seen a lot of those types of paintings before, but I couldn't keep up with Nico walking in here because I was looking at the artwork. I haven't seen a lot of alligator paintings. I've seen a lot of the different subject matter. I don't get to see it, so it caused me to stop and look at the artwork just walking in here. So as far
that's cool.
Answering your question, why would you bring different artists in? I think it's because the styles are different.
Yeah.
And the benefit of that is for local artists to, again, going back to one of the benefits of a public art program. Years ago, it seemed one of the only ways that you could see large-scale artworks before public art programs were put into place would be to go to New York or Chicago, where the centers of the arts were. With these public art programs now, you don't have to travel. You just have to go for a walk or a drive. And so by bringing in artists that are not from the region and putting that work on display, I think for the local artist, instead of them thinking of it's a missed opportunity for them, it's an opportunity for them to see artwork from a different region and to be able to maybe be inspired with their own work to keep their own work evolving and progressing.
I totally agree. And that's a really great explanation and description about that, because we've had that question before. And I think it's like you're in your own little bubble, and so to have people, like you said, come from the outside and display their works, or even people, you get exposure to other things and other walks of life. So that's super cool. And one thing I wanted to ask you about, and also mention actually, is the installation of these sculptures. You don't do it by yourself. You have help from the city, right? City staff has helped you. Public Works. You both mainly have delivered and installed, but you also partner with us in that aspect. We could not have this program as successful as it is without our Public Works guys, our Public Works team, correct? I mean, you did mention that you had a great experience, right?
Yeah, it's been a kind of a different beast here in Sanford, which is a really good thing. When we were here in September, putting up some sculptures, and your city crew was helping us, they were just on it. Anything we asked them to do, and I believe the main gentleman, Pete, was actually out supervising, which was just completely different for us as well. The boss was there, and he had noticed that a tree branch was touching the sculpture, and he immediately had somebody cut the branch. instead of letting the branch rub and destroy the paint, he saw it was going to be a problem and he eliminated it right there, which is for us pretty different, because typically when we've worked with city crews, they're a little indifferent to the work because they also have work to do. So they might be helping us, but they're also thinking about, oh, I've got to go deal with this water break, or I've got to deal with this immediately after. And with your crew, they're like, no, we're here for the day. We're your guys. Let us know how we can help.
Okay, great. And what about the whole process, though, of working with the city, the business side of it? Has it been smooth with the arranging and the management of the whole thing?
No, it's been really easy. And admittedly, the only problem we've had is us, the artists, because you guys have been you guys have
You
been
mean not returning emails? No, I'm kidding.
no, it's true. You guys have been fantastic and have been on it. And because we'll get an email like, I'll get to that later, and then we forget about it for the next day, and you're just like, hey, gentle reminder. And that's the thing, is you immediately kind of rolled with the punches of like, okay, these guys are just kind of
Artists, right?
and they're not going to, they'll get to us when they get to us. But you were persistent in a polite way that was like, okay. And then every time it happened, we're like, oh man, we're jerks. And we'd email you and apologize. And so it's been really smooth in that idea, because we're notoriously hard to get a hold of. And other programs have even, like, after 14 years, like, okay, yeah, we understand now that you guys aren't going to respond right away.
Yeah.
But you guys have been fantastic with that. And not only that, but your emails weren't, you were very direct. Like, you let us know what we needed to get to you. That way it was just
Good communications, what you're saying.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%. And
Okay.
my saving grace, I appreciate the smile in my direction. My saving grace, and again, what we talked about earlier is by knowing our strengths. When we do a lot of these shows that we're working together on, I will just by default hope that Alex takes charge in communications.
Yeah.
Returning emails in a timely fashion, because a lot of times, the 10 years difference between him, and it's biting me now, which we've noticed. I went out of my way to avoid learning anything about technology and computers when I was in school. And to this day, I still go out of my way to try not to.
Right.
I don't want to listen to learn. I don't, and I don't. It's not that I don't want to learn. It doesn't interest me.
Right.
But and that's something I need to improve on. But saving grace is strengths, and Alex did a lot of the legwork and communicating with the city. And
Good.
I knew that's safe. I knew he would be doing that, and he would. You don't need to. He would say it in a polite way to me. Even I'm sure, in case you didn't already respond, just to let you know I did.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and see, that's the thing. I mean, working with the government, being public artists, so to speak, you have to think about it, the flip side to that, all of our procedures and policies and paperwork and things like that. So you two are, understand why we have to do what we have to do. And so the end game is really for the artwork out there in the community right now. And those beautiful sculptures are there now. And, as we speak, people are driving, walking by, and probably they're putting a smile on their face. Something's happening in their mind, in their brain. It's reminding them of something, whatever it may be. And that's the whole point. Bring joy to our residents, to our visitors through art. And so we really appreciate the fact that you were able to be here. I mean, you drove down from Indiana. We had this plan for a while. And by the way, you both like Sanford, right? I mean, you do like Sanford.
Yeah.
You said that before, right? You were happy to come here?
Yeah, we had our first visit, and we found a couple really good restaurants, and then so basically since September to now, I've been like, all right, we've got 2 months. I'm gonna eat here. I'm gonna eat here twice, and so we've kind of been looking forward to this trip since it's inception.
Right. I remember I was talking to one of you, and it was like cold in Indiana, and you were like looking forward to coming to Florida. And luckily we've had it's been beautiful weather these we've kind of just hit really hot weather, hot season and stuff. But today was unusual with the rain in the morning. But we're going to get to some other installation, one more before all of that. And so we want to welcome you here to Sanford. We're glad you're here and that you love this city. And you agreed to work with us. And we have your art for 2 years. And you can't have it back for 2 years. So
it's neat. It's interesting that you asked, do we like, we've been here before, do we like Sanford without, coming off in the wrong way. The body of work that we both have, while it is large, we both have a large body of work to be on display. We do have to be selective with where we send it to be on display. So Sanford, we knew what to expect from the city, and with our previous experience working with the city and our visit. So we definitely knew this was a place we wanted to come back to. We knew this was a place that would appreciate the artwork, that would display it well, and that it was a place we wanted to come visit.
Great. So maybe there's like an alligator sculpture in your future, Greg, or something. No.
Interesting.
I'm kidding.
Interesting you should say that. I just saw Alex roll his eyes.
Wait. No, I just, did you want to say something?
Well, as soon as we hit the Florida state line, it was, there's an alligator. There's an alligator in there. I bet there's an alligator in there. So he's been waiting to see alligators for the last.
Just walk on the river.
And that's,
did you? Have you gone?
He did get to see his first alligator just a couple days ago. So have
you seen the lizards? Yes. The lizards. Yes. You don't have lizards in Indiana.
No. Completely different animals. In fact, I was shocked I even saw a squirrel.
What? Wait, you said owls. Owls and I'd love to see. We've got a lot of wildlife here. A lot, believe it or not.
There's been a crane at our hotel the past couple days.
That's new, right?
I've taken a picture of him or her every day because I'm like, I don't see you.
Yeah.
You are a dinosaur, but of course I give it a wide berth because I'm also scared of it. Like, you are the biggest bird I have ever seen in my life, so let's just give you a wide berth.
Appreciate from a distance.
Right, and that's why I bet, speaking of nature, there's a lot of nature artists in this area. With all this type of wildlife versus what being from Indiana, I'm sure there's nature there, but we're called Seminole County's natural choice for a reason because of the wilderness and the wildlife and all of that, black bears and all kinds of stuff. So, so there'll probably be artists here that focus on nature and stuff, but we're going off on a tangent here, but thank you for being in our city, and we are so appreciative that you took your time and came to City Hall. I haven't been to City Hall. You have your Sanford t-shirts you can wear back in Indiana proudly, right? Any last words you want to say?
Just thank you for having us and giving us this opportunity to display in Sanford again.
All right, great. Great.
Thank you for the warm welcome. Everyone that's involved with the process, thank you for the opportunity. I think him and I had been doing this for so long, and we never forget. It is an honor and a privilege to be able to have your artwork in the heart of a community, outside, to be enjoyed by everyone, and we are very grateful for this opportunity.
Yeah, so we are artists don't get enough credit sometimes, and we are so thrilled that we can have you on the podcast, talk to you, and promote your craft. And we thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is Lisa Holder, Communications and Marketing Manager. I got a title change, folks. We appreciate you listening to Sanford Says. You can find this podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and on the city website at sanfordfl.gov. This is Lisa Holder, and we're talking about the City of Sanford Sculpture Walk. See you next time. Have a great day. Bye now.